Assalamu alaikum and peace and blessings to you and your family. I am coming to you to thank you all once again for a beautiful month, our first month at my sister house talk show. It's been a wonderful, fantastic journey for the first 30 days. And of course, by Allah's permission, we're only halfway through season one. We're still going to finish up the month of January and February. And then, of course, for the month of Ramadan, inshallah, we will be taking off the month of March and April so that we can all honor and celebrate the month of Ramadan. And by Allah's permission, we'll come back in May with season two. So we still have a little ways to go in season one. However, I wanted to inform you of what will be going on today. Today's show will be a recap of our second show, which was entitled The Root of Civilization with Sister Medina Mohammed. Now, let me say why we're playing this show back to end the month. It was one of the most feedback we received of all the shows. And what Sister Medina gave was very profound. And we want to play it back for many of you to get notes on, to hear her words again. Pay a close attention to what she's sharing. Now, this was part one. As promised in that episode, there will be a part two coming up in a couple of weeks right here on Thursday night at my sister's house. However, we have a special addition to that part two. Sister Medina will be joined by her sister, Janet Mohammed. Now, for those of you who don't know, Janet Mohammed was one of the children that was removed from the home of Mother Bernstein Sharif Mohammed, the one and only secretary of Master Farad Mohammed, and John Mohammed, the brother of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. Well, Janet Muhammad is one of the children who was removed from the home because the parents refused to remove their children from MUI, or the University of Islam, and placed in foster care. She's going to tell us the story. This is going to be so profound. This will be the first time she shared this story. So it will be a lot of information shared that you've never heard. It will be a special account of her recollection of things that took place at that time. She was one who was there and witnessed Master Farad Muhammad and the walks in 1930 right here in Black Bottom, Detroit. It's going to be a special show. So that's coming up in a couple of weeks. However, tonight we're going to recap part one in preparation for part two that's coming up. So please grab your notebooks, grab your ink pen. Sister Medina reveals some things she's never shared before in the notes of Mother Bernstein Sharif Muhammad. And again, we would love for you to take advantage of getting that information tonight, as well as preparing for in 2 weeks when we will hear from Sister Medina and her sister, Janet Muhammad. So that's what's coming on tonight. That's what's upcoming for the month of January. We have some great shows lined up, so you won't be disappointed. You will not be disappointed. I thank you again for your support of At My Sister's House and In the Spotlight Presents. Thank you. So enjoy tonight's show. We have more to come. We look forward to giving you all of this great information. I'm enjoying it 1000%. And I thank you for your feedback and your support. Now, again, to get more information on Sister Medina, who will be aired tonight, www.thenoireformer.com. To hear more, please check out our website, www.atmysistershouse.org, as well as go to our YouTube channel, At My Sister's House. I thank you and enjoy tonight's show. Thank you. Welcome back to another episode of At My Sister's House Talk Show. I welcome you back. I thank you for joining us. Let me start by saying Assalamu alaikum, peace and blessings to you and your family. I am greatly honored by tonight's special guest. There is so many things I could say about tonight's special guest. This sister wears many hats. And as I was sitting and thinking of the intro, I had to start writing them down because I'm like, okay, wait, oh yeah, and she. So our sister is a chef. She is the owner of her own catering service. She's the author of several books. She is a historian of the Nation of Islam's history, especially starting in the early years. She's a part of the Nation of Islam historical exhibit. And although she won't admit it, she is a baker because I've had her bean pie. I speak of none other than our sister, my friend, Sister Medina Mohammed. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you.
And I want to thank you. I thank you because I know, one, you have a lot going on in your own schedule. But for you to take the time and come out and be with me this evening, I thank you for that.
Oh, it's an honor.
Thank you. Do you want to start by saying anything?
I want to say also, Assalamu alaikum to the listening audience, and want to thank you. All praise is due to Allah. I must first thank Allah always.
Yes.
For being able to sit and talk to anyone about the Nation of Islam in its beginning, the early 1930s. Yeah. I say, in the name of Allah, the Beneficent, the Most Merciful, I thank Allah for His coming in the person of Master Fatimah Muhammad and raising up the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad and our guide, leader, and teacher today, Minister Louis Farrakhan. And without Minister Louis Farrakhan and him bringing forth again the Honorable Elijah Muhammad and Master Fatimah Muhammad to the minds of the people so that they're not forgotten.
Yes.
If it was not for him, there would be no reason for us to sit and talk today. Yeah. I must always remember to thank him.
Yes, ma'am.
And thank Allah for him.
Well, thank you. I thank you because the role you're playing and the part you're sharing of the NOI's history in those early days is so critical and important. Absolutely. And sis, if it wasn't for you and your family sharing this information, literally we wouldn't know this information. So I thank you for that. I thank you for your contribution. So with that said, we're now going to go into some of that valued treasure that you have and how you became a part of that valued treasure. All right. Now, this sister, we're not just talking to because she's read, because she's met some people. No. Sister Medina is the daughter of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad's younger brother, Minister John Muhammad. And she's also the daughter of Mother Bernstein Sharif Muhammad, also known as the Reformer, which we're going to go into how she got that title. Now, Mother Bernstein Sharif Muhammad is the one and the only secretary of Master Farad Muhammad. And what makes this story even that much more valuable is the information that Mother Bernstein received, collected, to this day still exists, and you and your family have this information. Now, I can only imagine what it's like to know that information you have. So let's just start with the root, your mother and your father. Okay. What year did they join the Nation of Islam? How did it come to be? What's the history there?
Well, so my father joined the nation in 1931 with his brother and his father and mother. They all came in the nation together. Most of the family, it was 13 of them, Most of the family did not come up from the South.
Right.
Well, some of them did, but most of them came up north due to the opportunities, work opportunities.
Right.
Some of them would even put their age up so that they can go and work in the plant, in the factory for Fords. And later on, my father worked for Chrysler.
Okay.
Chrysler. He retired from Chrysler. But my mother came into the nation in 1932 with her parents at the age of 17. Her father had heard the teachings first.
Right.
And he was a Baptist preacher. And he heard the teaching first. Someone had mentioned it to him.
Now,
and,
this would be Jesse James.
Yes, ma'am, indeed. Jesse James Sharif.
Yes.
Jesse James Sharif. And so he had heard the teachings first.
Right.
And he mentioned it to his wife, my grandmother. Her name was Elistine.
Yes.
Elistine. And he mentioned it to her about a man that was teaching that Jesus did not raise from the dead, and that he was. This man said that he is our brother from the east.
Wow.
And so my grandmother, first she was wondering why he was come in so late.
Right, right.
He would come in so late and
let's
so
just pause there for 1 second.
Okay.
Master Fatimah Mohammed would teach
Right.
all day,
Right.
all night.
Most of the night. My mother said until the sun would rise. She said the people would come and they will come in shifts.
Wow.
And some would leave, very few. Some would leave and they would stay.
Now, they would go to different places, or were they at one?
Place. The location was 3408 Hastings Street, right over the Castle Theater. The Castle Theater was a regular movie theater.
Okay.
And so it was a great big hall over it that was for rent.
Okay.
And they rented, that was the first location of the actual mosque.
And this is in Black Bottom.
It's Black Bottom.
Yeah.
Absolutely. That is known as Black Bottom. My mother spoke about how the people would come from all directions and how happy they were.
Wow.
Once they started hearing the teachings.
Yes, ma'am.
And joining. And I was just reading something earlier today when she had wrote and said that the people would be coming from all like the Eastern Market area, all that area, walking, and they would have such a joyous spirit about themselves because of the teachings that Master Fard was teaching them, because he was telling them that they were the God.
Right.
They were gods.
Right.
Black man was the God.
And this is in 1930.
Right, absolutely.
So this is after we've been hearing boy, girl, being treated like animals. Somebody's coming, your brother from the East, telling us we gods.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Wow.
So,
so now go back. Your mother was kind of suspicious of her that husband.
She was kind of suspicious, absolutely, because he would stay out so late, and she asked him why, what's going on? Why you come in so late and so forth. And so he told her that, he said, well, I have to tell you something. And he began to tell her about the teachings of Master Fard's teaching.
Wow.
And she asked him, could I go? Could females go? And he said, oh, yes.
Right.
So she went, and she remained going, and she joined.
Yes,
She
ma'am.
joined. Yes.
Praise
And
be
my
to
mother
Allah.
came, went right along with them. She said it was the first time they went was on a Wednesday night.
Alhamdulillah.
Was on a Wednesday night, yeah.
Alhamdulillah. That's beautiful. Now, ultimately, at this time, your mother's a teenager.
17.
17 years old.
Mm-hmm.
She's coming out.
Mm-hmm.
And your mother is one of how many?
She's one of 8.
8 children.
Right.
So now the family is going out.
Mm-hmm.
And your mother makes a comment after observing something that upon a visit.
She was, she said she was always been very inquisitive.
Inquisitive, that's a word.
So she noticed that there was this brother typing with just 2 fingers.
Right.
And she said she didn't realize that when she was going there, she had seen so many of her friends that had been going to high school with. They were going to the meetings as well. So
everybody was coming as families.
Right. Families joining. Absolutely. Even when I grew up, it was more when one family came, families, cousins, everybody joined the nation. May not be everybody in that family, but it was generations. It was generations coming up all the way down to the babies.
And that's when we hear Master Farad gave out 25,000 names.
Right.
They were covering their families. At
least 25,000 names in Detroit alone.
Wow.
That was just in Detroit. And so when my mother saw, his name was Ben Sabakan, who became the first principal of the University of Islam School. Right. And she saw him doing some typing. And she mentioned to one of her friends that she said, "Wow, look at him. He's only typing with 1 finger. It's just pecking." And she said,
"And you can get a whole visual of that."
Right. She said, "I could use all my fingers, like that." And so she said the word must have gotten back to the Honorable Elijah Muhammad because later on, not too long after that, one of the meetings, mosque meetings were held, and the Honorable Elijah Muhammad asked, was the sister here that said she can type? And so she said she was wondering. He said, "And if so, please stand."
Right.
So he said, so she said she was wondering if it was somebody else. She said she knew she could type. Right. She looked around in all those hundreds of people, and no one else stood. And she said it must be talking about me. So she stood up.
Out of hundreds.
Out of hundreds. She stood up. And he asked her her name, and asked her was her parents with her. And she replied, "Yes, sir." And he asked them to stand as well. And so when he noticed that her father, who was the Baptist preacher, Jesse James Sharif, he said, and he see him standing, he said, "Oh, the ice maker's daughter."
Okay, now we gonna stop here. Because when you said this to me last time, I thought, okay, so your family was ice houses and they had something to do with making ice.
Not U.S. Ice. No, it was not U.S. Ice Company, no.
So I was soon corrected by my sister. It's not making reference to physical ice.
Right.
But it's making reference to
what ice does. And so it's the freezing of the brain, the teaching that the churches teach, the pastors and preachers, it was a reference to the teachings as freezes the brains.
Right. Mm-hmm. The ice maker.
The ice maker. And so so then he wanted to he asked her how many words could she type. And she said at that point, it was about 40, 50 words per minute. And later on, she was able to type 90 words per minute with a 95% accuracy.
Now, I know we're not going to be able to, in one interview, cover everything.
Well, we come back.
But definitely, because even the history to her typing skills, is its own story by itself.
Absolutely.
So it's as if she was being prepared for this role before she even came to see
Absolutely.
Master Farad Muhammad.
Absolutely, because when she learned her typing skills in the Miller. It was called Miller High School, which that building is still in that school. I think it has changed name,
Right.
but it's still there. And which was about a little bit from her house where she lived, and she would go there and learn. And it was a very prejudiced school. She
Right.
mentioned it was very prejudiced, and the teacher would. She said she would sit in a corner and that type of thing. And so the teachers, every time it came time for grading, they would hold her back. They would hold her back. And she said even other students couldn't understand why she didn't pass, because they would tell her, you the fastest in the class. You're the best in the class. Even they would tell her that, she mentioned. And so, but she said she realized that the more they held her back, the better she became.
Which was in preparation for something coming down the line.
Coming down the line, absolutely.
That's so fun. I remember when you first shared it with me, and it shows the wisdom of Master Farad Muhammad, because it's no coincidence.
Right.
And one thing we want to stress, and it's been said to stress, not just the one and only secretary, but this is a teenage girl.
17.
That was selected and chose to hold this important role. And what I found so interesting from our conversations, you know how often we can lose things in a move?
Right.
How often we can, I've moved several times, and I can't tell you I always have things. I always seem to lose something along the way. But for him to select a young girl who the information she got in 1932, 31, we still can see it in 2022. And what's so significant about us saying the typing, for all the students who are watching, know those lessons were typed first by Mother Bernstein Sharif.
Absolutely.
You know, the information she was typing, and it had to be, would you say, flawless?
It had to be. Absolutely. She had mentioned one time where she when she would make a mistake, she had to, because back then there was no copying machine.
Right.
There was no copiers. The best you can get would be a carbon to put in between the papers. So if there's a mistake for one of the, on one of the papers, she had to do it all over again. There was no whiteouts.
Right, exactly.
There was none of that.
Right.
You know, so she would have to type it all over again. And Master Farad was teaching her how to fold the paper to make, because sometimes she would type two things on one piece of paper. And so she was trying to separate and the two documents. And the way she did it, the ends of the paper were raggedy.
Right.
And he didn't like that. And he told her, he asked he asked the other brothers, because it was 9 laborers. She was the only female in among nine laborers. So everybody else were male. And he asked them, anybody want this that looked like a dog chewed on it? And she said, I want it. He said, yeah, quite naturally, you want it. You want it. And so he told her, he began to show her how to fold the paper so that it would be real clean and not raggedy. And so she said it hurt her so bad, because he took her head. He said, do you see it? Do you see? Do you see what I'm talking about? Fold it this way, fold. Then you can take it through your teeth a little bit, and this, that, and else. So he demonstrated to her how to do it, and it was. She said she was so hurt. She just wanted to cry,
Right.
because the way he was so hard on her. But then later on, after all the work, then he said, let's go get some ice cream. She said she didn't want no ice cream.
At this point.
So he tried to, soften her up a little bit and everything. And so she said she was thinking to herself, I just want to go home.
Right.
So he said, you sure you don't want any ice cream? And she said, no, sir, I don't want any ice cream.
Right.
I just want to go home. And he said, okay. He said, well, we'll take the reformer home.
Wow.
And
now the title, the reformer, that wasn't given to everybody. That was only given to Mother Bernstein.
Well, she was the first one to carry that title.
Right.
She was the first one to carry the title reformer, but she was the one and only secretary reformer to him. But she was there. Once the title became into existence later on under the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, he eliminated the reformer and just be called a secretary. Right.
Now, where did the reformer title come from? What's the meaning?
So Master Farad gave her the title, the reformer, and I want to read her description of what the reformer means. And she says, in her own writing, this is her writing, in her own writing, she says, the reformer, first she said, I held every position available. From reformer, then she explains, one who changes, establishes structure, organize, put in place that which is needed to bring about growth and advancement.
Wow. What a big title for a young girl.
When I read it, I was like, what?
Wow.
To bring about growth and advancement. Wow, that's deep. And so she further says on here how she was the secretary, the treasurer, personal secretary to Master Farad, also to the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. She was the first typist, was the fastest typist in her high school class. All literature, letters, lessons, problem book, facts, etc., she converted from longhand into typing.
So right now, for every student that enrolled in the nation, those were originally first type.
First type.
By Mother Bernstein.
This young lady right here at 17, a young girl. And so she goes further on to say that of the 9 first laborers chosen by Master Farad, she, at this time that she wrote this, she was the only one surviving. She was the only one surviving. And yet laboring in the Muslim community. She was the only female laborer of the nine laborers. She was the only female. She graded letters which everyone had to write for their holy name. She also helped those who could not hardly write.
She was assisting them
by taking their hand, guiding them,
wow,
giving them writing exercises.
Wow.
Until they can write on their own.
Praise be to Allah.
She also said she helped to set up the women's class, MGT and GCC, was a captain over it, advanced to instructor over it by the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, to train and instruct other captains, placed over it temple secretary advanced to instructed secretary.
So these are nowadays the language would be national captain, national secretary. She was the first.
She was the first. And she says it. She says, that's what she says right here, by the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, to train others in the position. In most positions, she was the first. And became instructor over them. Most times, she held 2 positions at one time.
Wow.
At the same time, and the Honorable Elijah Muhammad would send various workers in the community to her for instructions or clarification, which many times would include ministers. Ministers. Because she knew, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad said, because she knew the work from the beginning when the nation first started.
Wow. Wisdom. That's wisdom. So she was our first captain, first secretary, first female laborer of the 9 laborers, and the honor of working directly with, despite the zero tolerance from Master Farad.
Yeah.
She was the one and only secretary.
Right. That's right.
Praise be to Allah. There is, when we say what is the meaning of MGT and GCC, part of that answer, it talks about the training of women and girls. And this shows the value that Master Farad Muhammad put in all that came through the door, with the children, with the young people, because all of them played a role. Regardless. And as you and I have talked about the children's role initially in MUI in the early days and the founding. So just to see the 17-year-old girl.
A 17.
And the weight of that, it blows my mind. Because an adult, that would be a lot on an adult.
On an adult, absolutely.
And so I'm assuming if he kept long hours teaching at the mosque, there were long hours involved in the work.
I was getting ready to read that to you. She said that,
wow, this is phenomenal. This is phenomenal history.
Yeah, I was getting ready to... She said that,
and this is her actual notes. This is her actual handwriting and everything.
Absolutely. This is her actual writing.
Now, while she's looking for this, I do want to say, Sister has a website, www.thenoireformer.com. www.thenoireformer.com. We will include that. But check out the video. The videos on the website. Not just can you order the books, where a lot of what Sister Medina is sharing is right here in the book, so you can have them in your personal library. But it's words from the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan on the value of what Mother Bernstein's contribution to the Nation of Islam in our early years, and the value of who she is. And it will, if you've never heard the words before, it will really touch your heart. And as a student, as laborers, as soldiers in this, you want to have these books in your library. Now, because there's so much information, we're going to go into a segment 2 where you will see each of the books, and Sister Medina will highlight those and give you more information on how to order them. That will be available on them, included, so you can contact Sister Medina. And I also want to add this. Although she's my sister and my friend, I could call her and she know I will call and fact check her when I see anything on social media like, Sister Medina, is that true? Get the actual facts on it. And she'll tell me if it's real or not. And if she don't know, she'll tell me that too. But what I want to say, this kind of information, Minister Farrakhan said, every believer needs to hear this. So please don't think she just on my couch. She ain't just at my house. Invite her to your city.
Absolutely.
Invite her to speak to the believers. Invite the community out. Because if we don't understand the foundation we're standing on, how can we grow as a nation?
That's
this
right.
information, we don't want to lose it, miss out on it. We want everyone to know this information. So we're going to get back. I think she found it, but I just wanted to make sure I add that in there. We're going to provide her phone number. You can get in touch with her. Book her to come to your city. She loves doing that.
Absolutely. 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 And I approve that message.
And that message was approved.
So she goes on to write. She says, I was set in on the school and temple meetings long enough to bring back reports of how things were going, because I would be asked these things at the dinner table. She said, my job started at 9 in the morning at the temple and ended there at 4. Then I would be taken to the Honorable Elijah Muhammad's home to continue on, and well after 2 a.m. sometime, I would be taken home, and by the time I get warm in the bed, I had to get out of bed and go right back to do something else that could not wait.
Wow.
In fact, my time was really their time.
Wow. 17.
I heard and I obeyed.
Praise be to it.
And that's what we would hear all the time, even when I was coming up. As Muslims, that's all we heard. We hear and obey.
Yes,
we hear and obey. We didn't ask no questions on nothing.
Yes, ma'am.
Whatever somebody told us, the Muslims or anybody in position, tell us to do what, we did it. And if we asked a question, you had to answer that. Everybody. Right. And then go home and answer to your mom and your daddy.
Right.
And so you got whoopings lined up. If you ain't doing it, so you better
for all that free, don't do all that. Just follow instructions.
Just follow
now.
Just following, instructions. She said, I heard and I obeyed. She said, by being the reformer and secretary to Master Farah many times, he would bring me home himself.
Wow.
Sometimes he would take me and one other for a ride around the Lake Shore Drive in Chicago.
So now we in Chicago at this point.
In Chicago.
Okay.
She said sometimes the other person would be the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, Sister Clara, or Ben Sabakan.
The original typist.
Yeah, the
original.
See, you remember,
two-finger typist.
You learned it, right. You learned it.
Praise be to Allah.
Yeah, so.
Now, did she ever describe the driving skills of Master Farah Muhammad?
She did. She said that he would drive very fast. She said he had a heavy foot. He would drive very, very fast. That's what she said. Praise
be to Allah.
So I'm gonna read something else.
Okay.
She said, we the believers had bought him a car, which could only hold 3 people. 3 people. 2 others beside himself. 2 others beside himself. His teachings spread it like wildfire among the black people. The time was hard, plus being a people only 65 years up from slavery, most were unlearned. and the teaching that the white man is the devil and the black man is the God was easily accepted.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
She said the temple would be packed at every meeting, and many times lines were formed outside, down the street, and around the corner with black people waiting to come in and listen to Brother Farad, because he told them to call him brother.
Right.
But as I read, I'm going to tell you how that changed. He said Brother Farad would hold sessions, teach, recess, and teach again. Hundreds would attend each session, and some, not many in parentheses, would leave. What did he teach? The 6,000-year history. It was called the 6,000-year history and was fascinating. He would draw a circle on the blackboard to return to at the end of his teaching and would complete it complete it, calling it the Mother's Plane. The biblical wheel in the middle of the wheel that Ezekiel saw in the Bible. He taught that this plane was built to destroy America.
Wow.
This made us happy to know at least someone was going to kill the enemy that made us slaves.
Yes, ma'am.
Therefore, the meeting was always emotionally high, and he himself added to this emotion by at times hitting his pointing stick on the blackboard.
So, as he's speaking.
Right. Or at first on the speaker stand. And he said he was our Jesus.
Praise be to Allah.
And spoke with great authority. He often referred to that his 11 brothers in the East were ready and waiting. I know this. I never told you that one.
You ain't never read this to me.
I know.
So, I don't know if you're going to edit my expression.
I ain't never did this on no show. This the first time I did this.
I never read that last part about the 11 brothers.
Okay, I'm great.
Let me say this real quick, and she can bear me witness. Whenever the phone rings and I see it's her name or I call her, I already got the notebook, and she'll start talking. She said, "Are you writing this stuff down?" Yes, I am. Because again, we're not going to pick up a book and get this information, and we have lost too many who have this wisdom. Yes. We have to preserve our history. And again, I have to lay stress on. Minister Farrakhan said, every believer needs to hear this. Absolutely. All of it's not in the books. That's why you got to get her to your city.
Yes, yes.
I get the honors of talking to her. But this is one or two sheets of thousands of sheets. Yeah. Okay, this is information that we're not just talking about a minister, and that's not taken away from anybody's roles or positions, but we're talking about direct information and knowledge on Master Fatimah Mohammed firsthand. This blows my mind. She and I could talk, and all of a sudden we both crying because what she's doing is so important to she know her role in life because of her promise to her mother, which we're going to get to.
Absolutely.
And I've heard you say you didn't even realize what you were saying to her. So we're going to get to that.
That's right.
But again, back to Master Farad Muhammad's word, because I ain't never heard this before.
I know you never heard this one. So she says he often referred to that his 11 brothers in the East were ready and waiting for his word to come to destroy America.
Can you imagine hearing this in 1930
Right.
when you know your parents and grandparents and what they suffered?
Right.
And we're also talking about the Honorable Elijah Muhammad and his family coming from the South and what they witnessed.
Absolutely.
And as she bore witness, it's easy to accept this truth.
Mm-hmm.
And you didn't mention this part, but I think it's important to know we're talking about a very heavily accented.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, she said that he had a very heavy accent, and he would often say to them, I hope you understand what I'm trying to say to you.
Wow.
She said, because one example she gave, she said that he would say, like, I would say this here and that over there.
Right.
Well, he would say here and here.
Right. Right.
You know, so yes,
but
it was.
Despite the accent, they sat for hours listening. Despite the
They said
accent.
he didn't never sleep. He couldn't have slept. I know I was reading something else she had wrote about my Aunt Clara, and when Master Farad would be at the house, and she said Aunt Clara would go to bed, she get up, they still up talking all night long. And when you look at it, when you look at the time he spent, he didn't have time to sleep.
And we know the Honorable Elijah Muhammad said that.
Yeah,
he could never catch him sleeping.
No, he would never sleep. He never slept. And so it was just the time, 3.5 years, and he had to hurry up because they was on him. The authorities was on him, you know, going to jail. And so eventually he stopped teaching because he was warned so many times. And then the Honorable Elijah Muhammad would do the teachings.
Because there was an incident in which your father went to jail as well.
Absolutely.
In relations to the schools, correct?
That's correct. The enemy did not want us to have our own school.
Right.
And so my parents were warned to take their children out of the Muslim school. And my parents did not take heed that warning. And so they eventually came to the house and they took the 4 school-aged children, the younger children at that time. They took those 4. I wasn't born yet. Okay. But it was the 4 younger ones at that time, and this happened in 1953. 1953.
So now we're going to set the tone. Your mother has been laboring at this point since 1931, 32. 1932.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Now we at 1953.
Mm-hmm.
So we 21 years later.
Right.
4 small children.
Mm-hmm.
Pregnant at
she
the
was
time.
Pregnant at the time, absolutely. She was pregnant at the time with her 12th child because she had 14 children. Her and my dad had 14 children, and she was pregnant with the 12th child. She was 7 months pregnant at the time when this happened. So when they came to get the children, my dad was not there. And they sent him to jail. Once everything went down, they sent him to jail. And he had to do 30 days in jail, but only serving on the weekend. And then
that lasts a long time.
That's a long time.
Doing just weekends to equal 30 days. Yeah. That's a minute.
Because they wanted him to continue working, continue his job, and and so forth. So that's the way that happened. Right. And my mother never could, she would, I heard them say, and I heard my sisters and them say that when the children were taken, they were put in detention and then foster home. for about 90 days. And my father would come and see them when he could. But every time my mother, she never could go because she would just faint. She never could go and see him.
You know, when the first time I heard it, my first immediate thought went to Emmett Till and the story, because Emmett Till was killed in the early 50s. And the similarity of someone knocking at the door and taking him. Now you have who you've been told and teaching your children. The white man is the devil. They knock at the door and you have to give your children. As a mother of 4, I can honestly say I can't even imagine it.
You can't even imagine it.
I can't. I mean, Sister Medina, my children can go to somebody's house I know, and I'm like, okay, bring man's back now.
Right.
But for someone to take them.
It's a test of, it's a test of faith.
Yes, ma'am.
Well, all through the scriptures, Allah speaks about the test that he gives to those who say they believe, and we all will be tested.
So, I heard Minister Farrakhan do a lecture. We all were invited to Chicago, and he did a lecture called The Way We Were. And listening to the sacrifice of your mother and your father, listening to the sacrifice of, I know, so many believers at that time. And we were talking on sisterhood, but it's technically the brotherhood and the sisterhood of the Nation of Islam. I want to first go here. Many of the men went to prison at one time,
yes,
which affected the nation. And the role of the woman became very prevalent.
Absolutely.
Very important. And Mother Clara Muhammad, may Allah forever be pleased.
Amen.
She played a key part in helping, not amongst the women, but in our nation as a whole.
Absolutely. She would go and visit while they were in prison. And she would go and visit her and some of the sisters. And they would go and visit, and she would bring reports back and forth from the mosque and so forth, and she was keeping everything going. She was the nucleus to keep everything going and not stop. And so they wouldn't allow the actual book, the Quran, into the prison. They wouldn't allow it. So she and some sisters got together and they hand wrote it. And that's how they were able to do their studies in the prison.
Praise be to Allah.
They hand wrote it. Yes.
What a task.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I mean, that was a lot of weight. Again, we look at the contribution of Mother Bernstein Sharif Muhammad and her works. And Mother Clara Muhammad had a great responsibility in upholding our nation and keeping it going.
Absolutely.
While the brothers were in prison making that sacrifice.
Absolutely.
So tying that point in.
Bunch of sacrifices.
It was a lot of sacrifices. And because, again, being that I joined the nation in 1990, I hear a lot of and being blessed to be here in Detroit, we meet believers who were part of the earlier years of the nation, but this even goes back earlier than that.
Absolutely right.
And I've heard the sacrifices of the women in their dress at that time. It ain't all the garments we got today and all of that. They made a great sacrifice. The role of brotherhood and sisterhood in the sacrifice of the nation, how would you say in comparison? Or at that time, the spirit of the sacrifice? Well,
the love, even when I was growing up in the nation in the 70s and don't want to go back too far.
Okay, we ain't got to go all the way back. We ain't got to go all the way. We ain't got to give numbers.
Like, she had old. But it was, the spirit was so different. And I know my mother and father I remember seeing them at the table, and they would laugh and talk about only they knew in the house,
Right.
well, because they were the only ones that were there in
Right.
the early 30s and 40s, and they would talk about, you remember this one and that one, and they would laugh, and they would laugh. Yeah, remember he this, he that,
Right.
and then next thing you know, I see them crying.
Right.
And I'm like, God, why they crying? And they would be talking about how strong the love was, how much they loved each other. And they was talk about how, they didn't see that type of love before, had never witnessed it in their life. I want to read something that she wrote about that.
Wow.
About the love that existed then, and how they all felt about each other as Muslims. So I'm going to start out by saying, as we have mentioned before about the Tuesday being a special, like a holiday for the believers that Master Fard had set up for them. He asked the believers to set a date, what day did they want to set aside for them to have fun. And literally to have fun, because that's exactly what they did. Even though he was strict, and when it came time for business, but he also demonstrated to them an example of how to have balance in your life. And because we can't be all play, and we can't be all serious, so, but he demonstrated to them how to have a balance in your life. And so on this Tuesday, they would first, whatever business that they had to take care of, or whatever, the teachers about the school and students, whatever concerns of business, they would take care of that first on Tuesday morning, and then they would go and they would have fun.
Right. And
so they would often go to Wali's house. Wali was a Caucasian, blue-eyed. My mother said blue-eyed devil. He was Caucasian, and he had a home out here in Ferndale, and he owned his home. He was highly educated, from Georgia. From Georgia. And so they would go to his house, or they would go and have picnics at Belle Isle. But she said most of the time they went to Wali's house. And they would dance and have a good time, play games, and Master Fard playing games with him. And he would dance and give them prize, whoever won. He would give them prizes as well. When we do our exhibit, we show a handkerchief that he had given to my mother as a gift. And he write on the handkerchief to, and her initials, B.S. Bernstein Cherie. That's Bernstein Cherie. And so her initials, and he had from W.D.F. at the bottom.
Wow.
On the handkerchief. So that's a gift that he had given her. And but there were times when they got together and they had good time, played music and everything. And so she said that when they would go to the picnics, for instance, they were told to bring things that bring food that you think no one else would bring.
Okay. All right.
Bring
Get
something
creative.
totally different. Yeah.
Okay.
And when you come, don't eat your own food. Eat someone else's food.
Wow.
And so she says here, each one was told to bring something and to try to think of something perhaps no one else would bring.
Okay.
She said a long table was formed, and not like most picnics, the food was put on the table all together. and all together. And with that, this brought about, made the loving for your brother and sister what you love for yourself.
Right.
And the doing nothing to no one that which you would not have done unto yourself, because the Muslims life in those days, there was no hatred, envy, jealousy, no arguing or fighting between believers. She said the greeting of Assalamu alaikum, which means peace, was not only called out to one another, but exercised in the daily life. Unity was so tight that when you harmed one, you had the rest to harm. Love was felt from breast to breast.
Yes, ma'am. Praise.
When one got in trouble, all came to his or her aid. That's what she said. So I just wanted to read that part. And she also was talking about how glad when they would come to the mosque, and how glad everybody was to see each other. She said some of them did not even know how to say the greetings right. She said some would say salam alaikum.
Right.
Laika salam. She said that was the best they could do.
Right.
You know, if a person is uneducated, you speak according to that education, you know, level that you have. And so she was saying how that's the way, you know, some of them were, but the love in those days was, she said she had never seen or witnessed any type of love like that in her whole life. So
I think what you said was so impactful. All of it is, but when you said saying peace wasn't just words, but it was exercise. It was exercise. You know, Sister Medina, we knew we couldn't do it in one show. We already knew this was going to be a part 2. There's no way to get it all in. But I'm honored, so honored that you took the time to come and start the conversation.
Absolutely.
Because this is vital. And the point of this show is exactly that, to share the information that all of us don't have, and to give the example of and showcase what we have right here in our nation. So again, I advise and I strongly suggest you please check out the words of the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan regarding Mother Bernstein and the information that Sister Medina is getting to us. And it's at www.thenoireformer.com. Please, would you like to give out your number or? Yes. Let me also say, if I may. Yes. We have a website, as Sister Fatimah has mentioned, and we're doing some updates. So some of this information you will be able to see on the website. Please forgive us. We've had to make a lot of changes. We've been going through a lot of legal things as well, so that we can protect a lot of things that we have and be done in a certain manner. So, but now we're getting ready to add more information on the website. You will actually, when you visit this website, you will actually be taught. We will give you and share with you information that you will definitely want to keep coming back for more, inshallah. Praise be. So with that being said, please begin to visit the website, and we will begin to share more and more information. We're not trying to keep it to ourselves.
We're not blessed that way. We're not trying to keep it to ourselves. It's just a certain manner that we have to handle this information and the things that we're doing. And inshallah, we will be successful with your help. We have a foundation set up as well. We will be sharing that information with you. We're working on some huge products,
Yes.
as Sister Fatima is a part of. We're working on some huge information that we would like to be able to even purchase a lot of land in the Eastern Market area, the Black Bottom, the location of where the first mosque was. These are locations that are available. And we want to be able to start purchasing and set up the actual beginnings of the Nation of Islam, and inshallah, eventually have our own museum here in Detroit. So there's a lot that's coming.
Yes.
We're not asleep. We're not dragging our feet. We just have to do things in a certain manner. So thank you for being patient with us. And please begin to visit the website. There will be a lot of information that we will be sharing and learning. You will have a beautiful learning experience when you visit that website, inshallah.
Now, would you like them to contact you through the website?
I can be contacted through the website, or my number is 313-673-9840. And call me.
And again, as I've mentioned, the sister is available. Our sister is available to speak to you. And these books you want in your library, I bear you witness, you want these in your library. So again, Sister Medina, I do not want to leave without us saying what I said we will come back to. So that'll be the note we'll end on. And those were the words that you said to your mother as part as, well, let's start with you asking her how she wanted to be remembered and your words to her.
I asked my mother, these were two separate occasions. I asked her, how does she want to be remembered? And she said she wanted the people to know, the world to know, the many sacrifices she made in the cause for Islam, for the religion. And later on, I asked her, literally on her deathbed, minutes before she passed, literally. And I didn't ask her, I told her that I would let the world know who she was. And at that time, I honestly, that had to be, I lost saying it because I didn't even know. I didn't even realize what I was saying.
Right.
And I had no clue until almost 20 years later that this is it. This is what I'm doing. And with the help of the minister and sitting down with us and giving us guidance too, and showing us which way to go in terms of all that we have, we're going to share. You will know. You will know. Word is bond. You will know.
So I'm going to end, and again, you can hear the full content or a part of the content, but I'm going to give you a piece of some words Minister Farrakhan said. And he said, when speaking on your mother and these teachings and in the booklets, which again, we're going to end at my sister's house now with an interview, but we're picking back up in the Spotlight Presents. And our guest speaker is Sister Medina, and we're going to look at each of the books that you must purchase. But the minister said, if you don't know the root, you may not understand the tree. And he spoke that most of us in the nation knows very little of its beginning. The minister is advising us. It's incumbent upon us as believers. We have to become more study and have a better understanding. And this is an excellent tool to add to our library. So thank you again, Sister Medina. I love you.
You're very welcome.
We're going to do another part. So y'all stay tuned for part 2. And we thank you for joining. May Allah bless you and your families. And I pray peace and blessings upon you all. Assalamu alaikum, family.
Assalamu alaikum.